Hey my beautifuls, it's been a minute. For those who don't know me, my name is Roshni and I'm excited to be here to share with you all of my experiences with regards to my spiritual enlightenment experience, which sounds very out of integrity and very bougie. I understand that, but it was very true for me, as well as my embodiment experiences and essentially how I've learned to heal and create and live a beautiful, good life in alignment with my soul, my spirit. I could say my highest self. For me, it's a bit too spiritual. I love to live an integrated experience in that all of the spirituality we can experience outside of ourselves or in and through transcendence and transcendence of the ego, we need to integrate into our persona so we get to experience a full life of all of our facets and all of our potential. So as much as I love to get expansive and connective and talk about consciousness, I really love to keep it grounded and embodied and keep it really fucking real. And also apologies if I sound really nasal today. I'm trying to fight a thing that my body's coming out of. So I've been really reflecting on the kind of shit I just want to promote and provoke and create and express for you guys here on my wee little YouTube channel with all of the experience that I've had. And today I really wanted to touch on this integrated tantric experience of living and creating a beautiful life with regards to your internal experience of pleasure, especially if you're trying to come out of or coming away from pain and painful experiences and traumatic ones as well. Now, in the capitalist society that we essentially live in, and I speak on behalf of pure fucking Gnostic experience, okay? I'm not perfect, but again, this is just what I've discovered and has really helped to implore and sustain a sense of greater well-being and ease within me and my life and my lifestyle. The capitalist society that we live in tends to make us want to drive towards an end goal, right? We're always fucking destination focused. And in my past videos, if you've seen them, I kind of open and talk about this, especially leading with feminine embodiment, because if you're anything like me, you were raised to be molded in sort of a high achiever society. And not to say that my parents actually intended to do that, not at all. Apparently I was born like that and I just was a very high achiever from a very young age. So whether or not, from a young age we learn psychologically and subconsciously that the way we get rewarded is if we achieve things, then by nature our minds and our brains are constituted, and the framework in which we live or create and develop is sort of orientated around, if I actually go and achieve and I do these things and it's very doing focused, I'm going to get the love that I always wanted to receive. I'm going to get the dopamine hits, I'm going to get the serotonin, I'm going to get the oxytocin, all the good yummy feelings. And it's interesting because I have lived a whole life and phase of my life and experience of completely awakening, completely deconstructing, completely removing all of the layers to return to the essence of one, of almost absolute nothingness, of almost this reductionist experience of really removing all of the layers that wasn't me and who I truly was in my soul and my spirit, and then living a life completely in transcendence and in flow and embodied within this feminine union and feminine experience from within me. A friend of mine who's a great leader in the field recently shared that, and I really resonate with this. He said, men tend to operate out to in, but women tend to operate inside out. And that's definitely resonant with my experience. So I hope that the women who are able to watch this, who gain experience and insight through your own experience, that this sort of enlightens you too. So in society, we're taught to really be focused on the drive towards attaining the goal, always destination oriented, destination focused. And what that does, like I said, not just to our brains and our neurowiring and our belief systems and all of that intrinsically involved in creating that developmental experience, is what it does to our nervous systems is we're always looking for that hit, that existential fucking hit that we want at the end of the journey of getting to the reward, of getting to the experience. We think the experience that we're actually looking for is the destination, right? So what it does to our nervous systems is it puts us more into a sympathetic nervous system activation and engagement in our autonomic nervous systems, rather than allowing us to feel safe and secure in our bodies, which is a parasympathetic engagement, which is rest and digest, as opposed to an over-engaged sympathetic, which is fight flight, or can engage more of the fight flight experience, because the sympathetic is more routinely engaged, and we're programmed to believe that this is the way we need to do life. So again, if you're anything like me, raised as an overachiever, or you learned that getting your reward is through doing an accomplishment, you've probably burnt out. Or you're probably here because you're burnt out and you're looking for a different way, or you've burnt out, you're on the spiritual path, and you're looking for a way to gain more authentic fulfillment. And authentic is the word that I really want to draw to, because in my experience, you can go on about your spiritual journey and you might be completely committed to that and completely fruit in that labor of love, if you like. And that's a beautiful experience. But I found myself always feeling unfulfilled with my childhood dreams. And, those dreams are often birthed and seeded and planted within our little developmental egoic selves, and our ego, and that part of ourselves that creates a framework around our identity. And spirituality can often bypass this essential need, or these core needs that we were looking for from when we were children. And again, if you're like me and this happened to you at a younger age, it doesn't really matter what age, but my awakening happened when I was 24. And perceptively, this could have been around the time where I could have gone really big in the career that I wanted to go, down the road of entertainment and music and dance and stage and all of that, which was my full experience. But spirit and my essence told me to move in the natural fluidity, in the direction of egolessness, and in that sort of transpersonal, transcendental experience of life. So now I'm at a point of actually going, well, we're 30 something, in our mid-30s, and I try not to bring age into it. I made a video in the past where I talk about how time doesn't exist, therefore neither does age. You can go watch that here. But I'm in a point in my life where I'm going, well, what can I actually do with all of these tools accumulated, with everything integrated? So I've harped on a little bit about my life and my background, which is something I really do want to share here more. I found I have not wanted to share that side and part of myself out of fear of being egocentric or egotistical, or fear of not wanting people to think it is about me. But the reality of our lives is you are the center of your universe, and that's a very beautiful thing. And that was something I was very scared of. I was raised to be very selfless in my nature, and that being selfish, or being self-centered, was a very negative and bad feeling thing. It was a bad thing. So we've undone a lot of that conditioning, and I just think it's the most beautiful thing to be able to share your life experience and the depth of the journey and the fruition of what has come and succumb from and of that. For me, that is life itself. What I actually really wanted to talk about today was remolding and recreating your life so that the journey is what becomes orgasmic, or the journey is what becomes fulfilling, and that we're not so focused on needing to reach the end goal in order to receive all of these things and all of these rewards that we tend to drive ourselves towards. And this video isn't just for the ladies or for the women. This is also for men who are feeling fucking burnt out, because I know how hard you probably have to push to try to think you need to prove yourselves in the world, right? This level of self-worth that you think is determined by external values. So again, there's more of an impetus to achieve these things, achieve these dreams, because I'm going to look better. And I get that. That's something that I have definitely grappled with and experienced too. So I love to use from an embodied sense and state, and from a truly embodied and awakened experience in this way, I love to use sex and sexuality as a metaphor of how we can learn and integrate these tools in our lives outside of the bedroom, off of the mat, if you're a yogi or you know, love yogic experiences. So I'm going to draw on a lot of tantric and neo-tantric theologies here that I discovered naturally and originally within my own self. I didn't go outside of myself. I never was curious about things from a mental level and, you know, went to search or reach out for a book. Everything that I've experienced, mostly I'd say at least 95, if not to 99% of what it is I am here to teach and expel and express to you here in these videos and on this channel is solely from my own embodied, again, Gnostic experience. So when I had my own internal awakening, again, which I'll have to make a completely different video for, I had a consciousness ascension where the energy ascended, literally upwards, and then very much descended. And that's when I had my sexual awakening, and I don't want to really play into the eroticism of that. That came very much later through practice, through sacred sexuality and sacred practice. But this was more awakening unto the very nature of why it is I was incarnated in this lifetime as a woman, or why we as women are incarnated in this or previous or future lifetimes as women, as it is to be and become a man, as in, you know, incarnating as a man for men. And I discovered that, you know, typically in sex, and again in our sexuality, is very much a mirror of this patriarchal framework. And I really want to draw away from blame here. This is not about blaming society and the patriarchy. This is none of that. This is just pragmatic, grounded frameworks for understanding how we can heal and shift ourselves in an embodied way and state so that our lives fruit into healthier, more balanced, well-being versions of ourselves. So our sex can typically, you know, mirror this framework, which again is very patriarchal, where it's this focus towards the end goal, the end destination, and all of the reward lies there. So then what ends up happening again is we burn out. Our nervous systems are over-extenuated in the sympathetic nervous system activation. And I apologize if that's too theoretically expressive. But it is essentially the breakdown of what it is in the human body and the biology. It puts us in an unhealthy, again, this is very arbitrary and almost elementary, but masculine energy. It's a far deeper theology that we need to explore if we're going to do that in more of a yogic and an authentic traditional sense with ground roots and an authentic lineage of and body of knowledge. But if we're talking on the modern world or in the modern frame, you know, this masculine energy where it's all about driving and being penetrative towards the end goal and the end destination. So what happens is we tend to not focus on the journey. We tend to go and always be in this over-extenuated, over-engaged state in our nervous system, which leads to not just burnout but breakdown. And that's been my experience from a very early age. And so when I had my awakening, and then I had the descendance of energy into my body, and I'm hoping people won't think I'm crazy here. It was a very grounded and beautiful experience. I discovered that this is the way that our sex mirrors life, or life mirrors sex. Often we're taught, and especially in pornography and, you know, other means of sex education or sexually explicit behavior, you know, we're always focused on the end goal. It's like, I have to come, you've got to, it's like, you know, and the dudes are like, for me, baby, like, let's get to the end goal. Let's, you know, it's all about the end goal orgasm. And how this is so wrong. I mean, not wrong, but so inauthentically intrinsic to the beauty and the life that we can experience through the realms of pleasure in the body in a way that is life-giving, right? Instead of life depreciating, in which being focused on the end goal usually can be, and on an energetic level definitely is, especially when it comes to sex and semen or semen retention. Now we're getting deep. But we tend to forget that there is beauty in the journey. And our brains and hence our bodies are not wired for that. So what I really wanted to teach today, and I'm sorry it's taken me this long to get there, but it's really important to lay this basic framework down, or the basis of the framework down, is that when we can learn to re-nourish and re-nurture our bodies, our brains, and our nervous system, so that we learn that the journey can be pleasurable, that the actual journey itself in the bedroom during sex, and hence relayed into life itself, because that's how the brain works. Often they say how you do one thing is how you do everything, because of this sort of mirroring framework, right? When you change within, as does everything without or externally. And this is the art of working from in to out through the embodied feminine, which is moving inwards, which then reshapes your outward experience and world. When we learn to create our lives through a framework where our journey is the pleasure, is the orgasm, is orgasmic, and then the end goal, or what used to be the end goal, which is orgasming, which is coming, which is ejaculation, whatever it is, that almost becomes less of the reward, less of the goal itself, because you've turned your life and the journey into such a pleasurable experience where the orgasm and the reward is almost flipped backwards, right? But then the end goal, the excavation, the ejaculation, the coming, the end reward, the reaching the dream, the reaching the goal is like an extra beautiful thing we also get to experience. So life becomes not just a reductive this or that, but it also becomes an abundant this and that. I just really wanted to shine a light on, instead of really focusing on the end goal, whether you are someone who is on a journey to make your dreams come true, to experience pure and full and true fulfillment in the most beautiful, wholesome, and authentic way you can. Note that when you change your inner world and experience from a nervous system sense, which is essentially what unlocks a spiritual experience of this life and reality, when you heal your nervous system, it opens the different areas of your brain, where you then start to experience different transcendental experiences. I feel like I'm saying the word experience a lot, but that's ultimately what this comes down to, is your experience, my experience, which I can share with you. When we can turn our journey into the orgasm, into the orgasmic bliss, right? And we're not so fucking focused on the end goal, which can create a sort of deterioration around burnout, breakdowns, over-exasperated stress, just complete unhealthiness and imbalance in that sort of work life. Again, that's creating a separation between work and life instead of creating a union with everything. This is, what traditional Tantra teaches, of which sexuality is one limb. So I really want to sort of delusionify, or is that even a word? Remove the sort of elusivity of thinking Tantra is just sex or sexuality. That is far fucking from it. Let us not offend a traditional lineage that is rooted in authentic practice from the very, 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 very beginning of yoga and yogic culture. It goes far deeper than we can ever imagine. So spirituality, true authentic practice, is not an easy fucking game. It's not like picking up a baseball bat and just going for your life. It's deep and it's real and will bring up all of your shit. How I got here was through trauma healing, and it's been a fucking journey. But anyway, I keep going off tangents and I'm sorry, but I just really wanted to sort of relay this experience of nurturing your mind, especially again if you're a woman or a person who is on the path of achieving your dreams or your goals, or on the path of spirituality as well, because you can take from that, obviously. But what if we can reframe and rewire our brains, reframe our nervous systems to understand, to innerstand, and I'm getting new agey here, thinking of my friends in Bali, but we can remap our nervous system so that the actual journey becomes orgasmic. So going into the bedroom, really practicing a neo-tantric practice where understanding that every single touch or every single sensation that we can feel and experience with ourselves or within ourselves or with usually a significant other. And that's where sort of the nervous system work starts to take practice, because they can get really heated and get into their sympathetic overdrive. You know, it's this almost impulsive, it's super hot. And that's a lot of what we see of in Hollywood, in the media. You know, that's what's sort of romanticized in our culture, in our modern framework, is this sympathetic, engaged sex and sexuality. And of course that relays into our lives and how we lead them. It's this sympathetic, over-engaged drive and living towards the end goal. So what if we re-nurtured and repatterned ourselves from starting in the bedroom, from starting from the deepest, most authentic place within ourselves, which is authentic intimacy. And this is what I've taught in my workshops in the past, intimacy. Into me I see. And that's sort of taking away from this ideology that it's about the other person, pleasing the other person, doing everything for the other person and losing yourself. What if it's about returning inwards and starting from there, right? So instead of this over-engaged sympathetic experience or expression, what if we repatterned and renourished our nervous systems to self-nourish and to self-serve in a way that's self-nurturing? That's where it starts, where we can start to repattern ourselves, and again, in the way we do things, because ultimately, again, when it comes to the journey, it's not so much about what you do or what you achieve, but it's about how you did it and who you did it with. That's true fulfillment. So returning to coming back into the self, what if we could take it slower, okay? So the first step into repatterning and renourishing our nervous systems to come into a state of pleasurable journey, pleasurable experience, and then the destination is just like the cherry on top, baby. And I'm saying this for me right now too, just so you know, this is like nice relaying for me. So the first step is to move inward. Number two, secondly, is to move slower. Thirdly is to practice mindfulness, in that we bring our wholesome and authentic attention to every single sensation we can experience. And those three things are enough to start to get you onto the journey of, in the bedroom, letting it become an orgasmic, more neo-tantric experience, not tantric or traditional tantric, neo-tantric. So we're sort of creating this new expression, which is essentially a lot of the tantra you get in the modern world is actually neo-tantra. I need you guys to understand that, to understand the difference, because boundaries and healthy practice and expression are so important, because a lot of people can get exploited or become exploited, or not even know or have the conscious awareness that they're doing the exploiting, okay? It's something I'm very passionate about. So what if we brought it back to those three practices, where you can bring it inwards, and sure, you can call it a feminine embodiment practice or a feminine embodied way, to start to reframe and renourish your nervous system, so that even if you want to achieve or exceed in the outside world, you're starting within, and that's where it matters. Otherwise, if you completely self-abandon, you're just going to keep repeating the same shitty patterns that get you to burnout, breakdown, over-exasperated stress, disconnection, not knowing who the fuck you are, and essentially not really reaching the level of potential embodiedly that you actually probably want to experience at the end goal. The first step, again, is coming inwards, and you might want to practice this even if you're just in bed with yourself in the morning, and it doesn't have to be sexual at all. You can just start with gentle touch. First step is coming inward. Second step is moving slowly. So again, the mind has been programmed and patterned to move at such a pace that is of thought, which can happen like this, which is of hastiness, which is of, I've got to get to this end destination or else I'm not fucking good enough. If I don't become this person, I'm not truly valued for who I know I could be or who my peers or friends and family could see me as. No, we are taking away from the complete constructs of overdependence, of codependence on not just an external person, but any external realm. We're learning to become independent. Yeah, that's one way of saying it, but fully self-embodied. So then we move slower. Start to sync with your breath. The very first thing we experience in this life as we live as human beings is the breath. So when you reconnect to the very first experience that we had in this life, life not only starts to become more primal, but it becomes more intrinsic. And thirdly, once we slow, start to bring all of your attention and awareness to every single sensation. And this will start to really calm your body down. It will start to engage the parasympathetic nervous system again, which is your rest and digest, bringing you out of stress, fear, fight, flight, freeze. It will bring you into a state of embodied security and safety. And that's where everything comes from. So that might be a singular practice you might start to practice or embody by yourself. You don't need sexual touch, none of that, all right? But those principles and that framework, really start to practice and embody that. Then once you start to get into the bedroom with your significant other, hopefully you have a safe and sacred space you can move to and towards and within. And you can start to introduce this way of being, and hence this way of doing, with your significant other, or again, just yourself. I'm a single girl, so that is enough, right? And again, once you start to apply these practices and tools, that's when your brain and body starts to go, oh, hold on. Now we're sort of battling against the routine, what we used to do, those old neural pathways that have been built over time, through ritual and through unconscious practice, thinking that's the way you need to do it. But now when you start to bring more of a conscious practice into your life, into the bedroom, off of the mat, into the world, that's when it starts to become a little bit challenging. So that's why I want to use the framework of the bedroom, something familiar that we know and that we practice, where we can find our comfort and sense of security, but also pleasure, right? But we're reframing and repatterning it in a different way. Once you can start to practice this with a partner, that's when naturally your brain is going to start activating its neuroplasticity. Your brain is going to start creating new neural pathways to really signal to your brain and to your body, your nervous system, which is an extension of your brain, to go, okay, this is starting to feel good. And you're going to start to feel nourished and start to experience pleasure from the inside out, instead of thinking you need to go outside or move towards a destination and grab it, thinking it's unattainable or it's eventually attainable to and for you. Because my love, we can experience safety, security, and pleasure in the now. And that is what creates a holistic and abundant framework and foundation to create a healthier life for yourself when you go out into the real world. If you want to create your dreams, if you're an artist, if you're a creative, if you're a fucking engineer, if you're a scientist, whatever it is that you need to do, we are repatterning our nourishment. and our nervous systems to operate from the inside out, so that we prevent, hopefully, any forms of burnout, breakdowns, and any sort of trauma that we can essentially experience in the future, which essentially we're healing the past trauma as well through this neuro repatterning, and essentially stops us from creating a plethora and world of pain, and instead coming from a place of congruent and authentic pleasure. And that's just the beginning of learning how to repattern your inner body and your inner self, so that life can actually be and become a more fruitful, fulfilling, and beautiful, pleasurable experience from a Neo-Tantric framework. Okay, so the end goal doesn't need to be the destination. You can fully experience the joy and the bliss you want now through repatterning and healing your nervous system in a way that starts with these pragmatic 3 first tools and this embodied procedure and practice. So I hope that this really does start to help you start to, again, reformat and repattern a new way of how you can heal and deal and live in this life in a way that is truly nourishing and is self-serving from a self-nurturing place and perspective, because that is how we find ourselves as women. Through our nurturing patterns, we get to heal our hormonal imbalances, again, through healing the nervous system, which repatterns the brain. And then eventually, slowly, once you start to really practice and embody this will hopefully change how you experience your life and your world outside of yourself. And then the next few steps, which again, it takes time, because practicing takes time. Repatterning your nervous system fucking takes time. Rewiring the neural pathways in your brain takes time. If you are under 28 to 29, this will be very much freaking easier for you, because your brain is currently pruning itself. And it's not until about 28, 29 does the brain start to really reform and go, who the fuck am I, and how do I actually want to live? What do I actually want to do? They call that your Saturn return. But it's really your prefrontal cortex and your neocortex fully growing and developing. And by age 31, your brain is fully developed, right? But that doesn't mean you can't do it after 31. This is why the brain is such a beautiful thing. It's adaptive. We have neuroplasticity to help and serve us and attain these new ways of being. I'm 30 something. I don't want to even acknowledge the age, and I'm really integrating these practices now to, again, help serve me in my life so that I can achieve my dream, but in a way that doesn't drain me. Right? We can get drained so much energetically, especially if you're someone who's flighty and creative and you like to achieve goals much like I do. I get those dopamine hits, but it can drain me and my nervous system, especially from all the trauma I've experienced. So I'm really learning to repattern myself so that when I do achieve my goal, or if and when I do achieve my dream and goal, it's done in a way that is self-serving, that is self-nourishing, that is self-nurturing, and essentially is wholesomely collective to, once I am able to achieve again these goals in my dreams, I'm not burnt out. Instead, I'm full of energy, and I'm full of prana. And it's because of the way I did it. It's because I took the time to move slower, to move more consciously, and to really change my theory and my theology in my mind and in my mindfulness, and through mindfulness, that I and we can live in a way that is truly nurturing and fulfilling, where we can still achieve our goals that we had from when we were a kid, and we don't have to live a completely spiritual life without being able to feel nurtured and fulfilled in these things, right? So my practice really now is integrating all of these aspects. And that's why now, finally, fucking 10, 11 years later, I'm here to share my teachings and my learnings and what I've really fucking wanted to do for and with you for over, again, 10, 11 years. Finally now. So I hope that this really nourishes you and serves you. Let me know in the comments if you learned something new, if you've taken something away that you can really truly apply, that will help nurture you, your dreams and your goals, and what it is that you have always dreamed of wanting to achieve, but in a very wholesome and spiritually integrative way. And I don't usually do this at the end of videos, but if this serves you, I would love for you to click the subscribe button. Now I'm starting to feel it's very not me, but I'll try it for this one. Click the subscribe, click the thumbs up, so we are able to get this video out to more people, so we can serve and nourish more women who want to feel nourished and fulfilled in their lives wholly and intrinsically, but also for men who need the healing, who also need the balance of feeling your feminine and your embodied state nurtured and nourished. Ultimately, we're doing this collectively because we as women give birth to our humanity, to the future generation. When we are healthy and nourished in our bodies, how we be and do and live and create extends far beyond us. It affects our family, it affects our relationships. We have more nourishing partnerships. We are more awakened to the patterns of what can trigger us and piss us off, and instead create healthy and holistic frameworks of more nourishing partnerships and relationships. It's so important. And what comes from that? What comes from this seed, the seed planted into the egg, is new life, is the future generation. If we want to create a new and healthier world, my loves, it starts from within us. Healing the trauma, healing the repatterning, healing the conditioning that is not in alignment with our healthiest and highest well-being. And this is why I'm here doing this for you today. Peace out. I love you.